Hello, listeners, and welcome back to the Talkie Taka podcast. We gathered here to discuss the football games that have happened in the recent few days and weeks. We had the Premier League ending. We now had the end of the La Liga, the end of Serie A, which has interestingly ended with two teams on the same number of points and a relegation playoff looming after 18 years of time. Interesting stuff coming up. And to discuss this and much more, I have the usual band RK, Radhaji, and Ashwin. So, guys, how have you been? The FA Cup final has come and gone. Man City triumphant. So, not very happy United fans here. De Gea getting a lot of stick. What are the talkie points? RK, let's begin with you. Not the FA Cup, I presume.
Yeah, not the FA Cup. I don't want to think back to De Gea's miss on that second goal. There's a lot of United fans who are hoping that his contract is not renewed, but the treadmill is that it's going to get renewed soon. My talking moment is, however, on a different plane altogether. It's basically Anthony Taylor, leaving the airport at Budapest with his family, and the Roma fans really coming very close to, I mean, actually harassing the family as well. It was really scary to watch. We also haven't been very partial towards Anthony Taylor, but I think abuse and physical harm is on a different level altogether, and I think Mourinho's role in that was also has to be talked about. He should probably get a punishment for like doing actions which actually incited fan behavior. So I mean, for me, that's the talking moment of my week. And however much we hate refs and talk about the performance, this is not at all deserved for doing a honest job.
Yeah, it's not as if, I mean, unless proven otherwise, he wasn't trying to actively hurt Jose's team, right? He took a call. It was the wrong call. That's fine. I just found it very interesting that there was a chair chucked at Taylor and his family, and there's this police guy who just swats it away. It's and his expression is like, I've seen this 1,000 times. Like I'm used to shit like this. Anyway, not good scenes to see, but yeah, we'll talk about Jose a bit more in detail. Ashwin, what's it going to be for you? Gundogan.
I love how you're trying to, like almost provoke us into discussing the FA Cup final. But I'm going to talk about probably another pain, and that's Dortmund throwing the title away. But there's this one moment after the game that just signifies how great a club and how well connected a club Dortmund is to its fans. So right after the game when Dortmund lost the title, Eden Terzic and his team went over to the, just approach the yellow wall, and you can see like all the fans applauding them for their efforts in the season. This wasn't a team that was supposed to win the title. I would have probably said that the likes of Leipzig would have had a better chance compared to Dortmund. The 2018-19 team led by Far probably was closer to Bayern in that respect in terms of winning the title. But yeah, I mean Dortmund pushed them. Things didn't work out, but it was just an amazing moment to see and to watch after the game.
Yeah, I don't think when we did our predictions before the season, we had Dortmund winning the Bundesliga anyway. But yeah, heartbreakingly close to winning the league. But there shall be another year, hopefully. Right. Finally, Radhaji, don't tell me you're going an, for the Gundogan goal.
I don't know. I think Swagat has got some money to keep bringing up Gundogan in our talkie moments of the week. But good evening, guys. Anyway, for me, it's let me summarize the talkie moment like this. See, senor, give the ball to Bobby, he will score. I think I called it last episode. I had already pre-decided my talkie moment of the week. Since then, I think we've had a home game and an away game, and he ended up scoring in both. Can't ask for more. Absolute gem of a player, gem of a guy. is so absolutely lovable. Every Liverpool fan, I think, will struggle to see him leave. I don't think losing Mane comes anywhere close to this. Although Mane has done a lot for the club, scored more goals, all of that. But I think losing Bobby will be very difficult for the entire fan group. 8 years, he was quite synonymous with the Klopp era as well. And if you think back to when Klopp first started, Adam Lallana, James Milner, Jordan Henderson, and Bobby Firmino, these were the four names that perhaps right from the beginning they've been there to all the way till now. And losing Bobby, I think it will be a big loss for us. But nothing but happiness, nothing but pride. Absolutely love the guy. Ever since he announced his retirement, and the content coming out of Liverpool is just through the roof. They've got a new mural painted in Liverpool like they do for all their favorite players. This mural is painted on the wall of a house of an Evertonian fan. That part I like. It's just a little bit better than everything else. But yeah, beautiful. I think there's a documentary coming out as well. I'll have to pay for my subscription annually. Every summer I do it, and this time I have a documentary to watch as well. So yeah, Firmino's my talkie moment of the week, of the last few weeks.
Yeah, and do we know where he's headed? There were talks about Madrid being a destination for him. Do we have any clarity on that yet?
Not sure. Yeah, there are rumors that he's. I mean, I don't think the Madrid ones are. I don't think they will be signing Firmino. Sounds like it would be like a, I don't know, one of these clubs in Brazil, something in Portugal, perhaps. Everybody will be happy. I think him coming back to play at Anfield in the Europa League next season will be a nice thing. Hopefully, for a club that really doesn't matter so much and we don't get caught up in the result of the game. That'll be nice. Real Madrid would be outstanding for him. I mean, it doesn't come bigger than that. They've just let Benzema go as well. So maybe they'd want to sign one young striker and one guy who can just sit on the bench and come off the bench and do a job. So you never know. I mean, it'll be an incredible move for him and his family.
Yeah. And for me, my talkie point surprisingly has nothing to do with the FA Cup. It's Luton getting promoted to the Premier League. Luton were one of the founding members of the Premier League, and they did not get a chance to play in it because they got relegated that very season. So they've had parachute payments from the Premier League before they've actually played in the Premier League. But it's a lovely story, and all those memes about the away end at Luton going through 10 people's households and entering the field from windows and stuff like that, and VAR being Sky TV being recorded on someone's television, all that sort of stuff. But jokes apart, I think it's a really interesting story considering that they almost went bankrupt. They've climbed up from the National League to the Premier League in a span of something like 8 to 10 years, which is pretty amazing. And one of their players has actually made the entire journey with them. So he was there um, when they were non-league, and now he'll be playing in the Premier League. So that's quite an achievement.
I had kind of given up that Swag is going to talk about Gundogan. Anyway, well done. 1 minute less on that guy.
So I think now that you've mentioned him, let's come to the let's take care of the grenade first of all. The 12 seconds in, I don't think even the commentators had settled down, and I'm not sure if it was planned because it did seem like there was some thought to it, because right from kickoff they sent it to Ortega, and Ortega punted it up towards the other side, and it was still, you would say, it was a hopeful attempt from Gundogan, but De Gea was a bit too slow. It's surprising that he does these sorts of performances and gets the Golden Glove as well. It's a bit like DSK said on the group, like Kepa with all his performances during the season, and he gets the Save of the Season award. But yeah, I think RK shared something about the XG where Gundo's XG is 0.05 and two goals have come from that. So thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think this match. What Ortega did with that one pass and how De Gea performed in the game encapsulated how a lot of United fans feel about De Gea, and especially after that game. uh, Ortega did not really have a save to make, although we will talk about the balance of play in a bit. But in his passing and in his both his short as well as the long passing, and also the way that De Gea did the same things in his long passing, especially, the stark difference between how Guardiola has built a side even with a backup keeper, and the work that lies ahead of Man United was laid bare. Uh, of course, that goal was a shock, but United, I was very afraid about how United would respond to, like going a goal behind after 12 seconds, having had, a few really bad performances away to big teams. So, like United fans were bound to be skeptical, but United, I thought, reacted very positively to going behind that early. The pressing shape was especially very intelligent, blocking the center of the pitch and kind of using Ericsson slightly higher up along with Rash to press the double pivot. So like City found it really tough to build out from the back. They had a lot of position with the keeper and the centre backs, but they had to go through the wide areas, and gradually United started to, get into the game, get into good territories, get good shots off target. I think one regret would be that we didn't force Ortega or test his skill as a shot stopper much, but I think City were way below their best, and part of that credit goes to United. We were very lucky to get an equalizer. I think I would still count it as a penalty. There were a lot of differing opinions on whether that should be a penalty or not, but it was a clear handball to me. So although it was an unnecessary error, it still was a penalty. I think we were lucky to get back into the game that ways, and then De Gea just threw it all away again. So, one of the, like, if you ask me the two main themes of that match, one would be the keeper battle and how De Gea's deficiencies were laid bare, and second was how good United were in controlling the game without the ball, controlling the pressing shape. Overall, I think it was a very close match, which should ideally have gone to extra time.
Yeah, I think it was a really good tactical battle, right? Obviously, Ten Hag knows Pep Guardiola well from his Bundesliga days as well, um, and we were all expecting the double pivot. And credit goes to Pep Guardiola for using John Stones of all people as one of the midfielders. He's playing like, well, Pep Guardiola himself, right? And I was expecting Bruno to start on the right, and us making the shape very narrow. Um, RK reference to Ericsson pressing. I don't think he did it well enough, and that is something that I think you got to expect with Ericsson, right? Like he is someone who huffs and puffs, but like he can't have the same level of energy that other players have. Um, Obviously, City were forced to play through the fullbacks. That meant that Walker had more of the ball, and then Sancho. I still felt that he's not he's good, but he's not fast enough. So that meant that we were always like playing against a stronger opposition when it comes to like man to man as well. I think we were lucky to get back into the game. Again, I felt that it was a penalty. It could have been 50-50, but if we hadn't got the penalty, that would have been the controversy we would have been talking about, right? And now it's probably the City fans who are calling it out. In the end, it did not matter. It was great to see Haaland kept in bay as well. He did get a few shots, but it wasn't like his usual self where he's like scoring 2 goals every game. And as far as De Gea is concerned, I think the first goal was like um, the first goal came out of nothing. It was like a total lapse of concentration. I felt like we needed like all the 11 players to step up, and like in this particular game, I think it was maybe 7 players who did step up, and like 4 or 5 or 4 players who kind of let us down. The second goal, you could maybe argue that De Gea saw it late, but then you're a professional keeper, and I mean, even if you see it late, and Gundogan did not get a good connection on the ball even, so I think he could have arguably saved that. I think Garnacho was great towards the end. He did have some really close shots, and one of them could have even gone in. So we could have been talking about a different game altogether. But I'm really happy with how United played overall. I think we were all expecting like a proper mauling of sorts. I know as far as the XG is concerned, we actually ended up having a higher XG than City as well. So that does goes to show that we did not play as bad as we had feared. But yeah, I mean, it's probably the only way anyone could have stopped City from winning the treble was this. I mean, with all due respect to Inter Milan. But yeah, it wasn't meant to be. So congratulations to City and Pep Guardiola.
Rather unsurprisingly, both the United fans think it was a penalty that United got. Like it's no surprise at all. But did
Yeah,
you feel?
no, I didn't think it was a pen. I thought it was. I mean, we've seen so many of those not given this season, but actually, we've also seen those given. So I still don't know what the hell a penalty is anymore. His hand was like he was in the air. His hand was close to his head, and um, I mean, he wasn't even looking in the direction of the ball. So I thought it was unlucky. I thought City were just okay. I think they got. I mean, they scored off two non-chances pretty much. They played decent enough. I think created some chances towards the end. I think they just got, come on, let's just see this through and go to the Champions League final. I was saying in the last episode. I think if ever there was a chance of them losing, it would be this game and not the Champions League final. I think they were there to be taken, perhaps, but they also had that real City steel of getting the job done, scoring two unpredictable, probably low probability goals. Gundogan being there and doing that again. I mean, how often does this? I don't know, Swag, whether you caught the game, but I think Gundogan did pretty well. I'm not sure if you saw that. But yeah, so Gundogan just came out of nowhere, two amazing moments. He does this so often for them. I think he's that, we've had this entire era of these box to box midfielders and in these English midfielders who get to the box and score goals, your Gerrards, your Lampards, all of that. Very unassuming type of guy, but he's actually been the one who's carried that torch forward in this current era. He's the guy who's absolutely, you take it for take it for granted you'd get those 7-8 goals a season from him. Consistently does it in big games. So I mean, I don't want to get into too much about the game. The boys have already done that, but Gundogan, man, like what an amazing player, and I think he'll be somebody that Pep should be really breaking his back to try and replace soon.
Yeah, and I agree. I felt that City were there for the taking. It was a pretty even game, and I think so. If you leave the mauling where Haaland had his hat trick, in the other two City United games, United have given City virtually as good as they've got. So I think Ten Hag has not been how do you say too downbeat, and he's made effective use of his of the tools at his disposal. He might not have gotten the result here in this game, but nevertheless, it was a good fight that United gave. So there's definitely heart to be taken from there.
The player of the match, however, Raza talked about Gundogan and Swag has talked about Gundogan a lot as well in the pod. But John Stones, I think, was the man of the match for me. He has been playing that midfield role for quite a while now. In fact, City's like resurgence since March has a lot to do with one of the things it has been John Stones, becoming a kind of like a pivot midfielder on the ball, and he also it's not here like Stones is not just a pivot midfielder. He makes those extra man runs on the right hand channel as well. You see it a few times. So it's he has a pretty adventurous brief for that role, and overall the way that he has done in that role, the way how comfortable he is in position, considering that he's playing for a Guardiola team, and the last minute goal line clearance, I thought that was going in as well. So all things considered, defensively and in position, that guy has been a revelation in this role. And credit to Pep for, I mean, I don't know if he does it on purpose or if he just keeps fiddling and suddenly he finds a formula. But every season he has some breakout moment like this, and it just starts clicking for his team. But I have to, like, the mind, like whichever player I'm talking about, my mind keeps going back to De Gea. So I'll just give one stat I read on Twitter as well about the second save. I don't know how genuine it is, but the stat, what it said was that based on the historical data of similar shots, something close to XG, 80% of your average keepers would have saved that shot. So that's
Yeah, I think that's why David Raya is being talked about as a potential replacement. Diogo Costa from Porto is being talked about as a potential replacement. I don't know where does Dean Henderson fit in all of this? Is he definitely heading out?
Yeah, I think there's some news today that Nottingham Forest might try to sign him as well. Um, but that's the thing, right? Like the last time De Gea actually had someone to compete for his place, he just turned into prime David De Gea, right? Uh, and the moment that does not happen, he becomes complacent. But I think for a Ten Hag team, you need a bit more than just shot stopping abilities as well. And the real reason that most United fans would want De Gea to be replaced, or at least him to have some competition, is his build up abilities. He's so uncomfortable on the ball. It's a joke, and he's Spanish, so I don't know if that is something that can be coached into a goalkeeper, right?
So just, I mean, there's been a lot of chat about goalkeepers in general. So we were looking at the stats earlier on the goals saved in the season so far, the Premier League season so far. De Gea is actually, I mean, he's not great. He's right in the middle of the pack. He's minus 0.7, which means he's conceded 0.7 more goals than his XG suggested. Um, but just going through the list of keepers that are worse than De Gea, these are guys that typically are
Ramsdale.
always talked about well, like Fabianski. We talk about him. Ramsdale, he's conceded 2 goals more than he should have. Mendy, 2 goals more than he should have. Keylor Navas, Robert Sanchez, Hugo Lloris, Dean Henderson, Ederson. Ederson has conceded 4.8 goals than he should have this season, and he's, I think, I'm going to say sixth from bottom in the Premier League. So that's pretty crazy. There's some really big names underperforming, even like what an average goalkeeper should be doing. So yeah, I mean, while De Gea definitely he's not going to take United into the promised land as the saying goes, but there are some real big names who are probably struggling as much as he is, or probably even worse.
I thought Radha was reading from the back of
Yeah,
Ashwin's
I
screen.
thought the same thing. There's a poster behind Ashwin which says Manchester United are in the promised land, and our YouTube viewers can probably zoom in and take a look at that.
Yeah, yeah. See, my
Someone else, some other team winning the treble this time. So
yeah, it's a good season to quote
But
that one.
but rather, talking of keepers, is Allison top of the pile? My bet would be there.
Oh yeah. He's been consistently all through the season. Whenever I've checked this table, he's been on top. Uh, Earlier he was on top by a distance, like he was like 7, 9, 10 goals he had saved more than he should have. And the next was actually Kepa, who had just played like some 7 or 8 games, because he had that run of, if you guys remember, save of the season after save of the season, he was
Yeah.
pulling off in those 3, 4 games that he played for Chelsea. So he was two, but very like pleasantly surprised to see that number two on the list now for the end of the season is Bernd Leno. So he's played 36 games, so it's not like a flash in the pan performance as well. He saved 9 goals more than he should have. So he's just behind Allison, who saved 10.1. That's 9 for Leno, and Kepa still number 3 with 5. And David Raya, one of the names Swag just quoted as a potential United signing, is fourth at number. He's saved 5 goals more than he should have as well.
So imagine if Leno was still at Arsenal, those 9 goals might have made the difference between finishing 5 points behind City or not.
I was looking at all the stats, Swag. Even that this so FBref has these stats on obviously post shot XG versus goals conceded, but it also has passing stats. His pass percentage is also better than Ramsdale's, and the average length of pass is also more or less consistent between the two. So Ramsdale is a 33. I'm going to say meters or feet. I don't know what they're measuring, or it's yards. Okay, 33 yards, and Leno is 30 yards. So they're also on average passing in a similar kind of manner, and Leno's percentage of passes is slightly higher at 31% versus Ramsdale's 25%. I don't know. I always got the picture while watching Ramsdale that he does some crazy influential shit. Like he comes up big in top moments. Of course, moments don't get shown by these stats. It could have been like many maybe inconsequential moments where Leno made his saves while Ramsdale did it when it counted. I don't know all of that, but I always got the feeling that Ramsdale had a very good season, but this was a little surprising to see.
And
Yep.
what's also strange is that one of the reasons for Arsenal replacing Leno with Ramsdale was the passing ability. So I always had, because of that, this impression that he's not a great passer, but this season kind of changed that for me.
Yeah. Right. Moving on from the FA Cup final. So that means that Pep Guardiola has won another final, and there is only one person who beat him in a final. That person just lost another final, which is Jose Mourinho. So RK mentioned this, and all the shithousery that Jose did on the pitch, at the ground, in the parking lot, all of that still could save his Roma side from going down in the Europa League final. So Sevilla have won it again, not surprisingly, and they will be in the Champions League next season. But any more thoughts on what Jose did and what the future potentially holds from for him? There is talk of a Europe ban for him, so basically UEFA ban, not a Europe ban. Basically, not being able to manage in a UEFA competition. So imagine he goes to a PSG or something, but can't take charge of the team in the Champions League. That would put off quite a lot of people from hiring him, I guess.
Yeah, and I think he's leaving Roma as well, right? So it's not like he can just stay put. Uh, I think I'll probably start with the game in itself. It wasn't the best game to watch, and I wasn't really expecting it to be a really good game. I think Roma probably shaded it in terms of chances. They definitely uh, could have got a penalty, but it did go to VAR, and VAR basically said it wasn't a penalty. So it wasn't just Anthony Taylor's fault. It was probably the collective fault of the entire team officiating that. Um, Chris Smalling also, I think, hit the bar towards the end, so he could have won it for Roma, and which would have been like really.
Imagine the scenes if that had gone in. Imagine what Jose would have been doing.
Yeah, he would have probably, run to the other end and like done another slide or something like that. See, this is the part of Jose that I really hate, right? And I mean, it's very well documented that I'm not a big fan of Jose Mourinho. Like he's a great coach to watch when he is managing your team and he's like literally dissing out the opposition fans. For me, I remember the match against Juventus when he was, when it was shithousery at its best, and we somehow won the game, and he was like really riling the Juventus supporters. Uh, but these are the kind of things that you really don't want to see, right? If you've lost it, at least have some credibility. You are like a very well respected manager. You've won European titles, you've won Champions League titles, and to go out there call the referee a fucking disgrace. I mean, as fans on Twitter, that is something that I expect them to do. But like a manager going uh, into the parking lot and just literally going after the referee like some bloody WWE superstar is just really weird. Um, and then obviously that meant that the fans thought that, oh, okay, our manager is doing that, so it's okay for us to do it, and they start hurling abuses at the ref and like literally terrorize his family as well. So those are the kind of things I really don't want to see and really didn't like after the game. I definitely hope that Mourinho gets a lengthy ban, and Roma get a ban as well. Maybe the fans are not allowed inside the stadium for a while. I think those are the kind of things that we really want UEFA to be doing,
Roma fans not
especially in
allowed
the.
inside airports, train stations.
Yes. Uh, yeah, I mean, because I mean, at a grassroots level, I've been reading these reports on the Athletic as well that there has been an increase in violence against referees as well. So if these kind of things are happening at the very top level, well, not the topmost level, second division of Europe, uh, I mean, think what happens that in grassroots level, right? Like people, a lot of these things are not even reported. Um, so yeah, that's my take on this.
Like before the final, I would have wanted Jose to win because it's more fun to like watch him win than it is to lose, I guess. But and also being a ex United manager, but also I had a huge amount of like sadistic pleasure in watching him lose to Sevilla in a big match, because one of the biggest grouses that I have against Mourinho as a United fan is when he was singularly responsible for United going out to Sevilla in the Champions League. It was his tactics that kind of resulted in a very even match in a tie that we should have easily won. And after that, he talked about United's lack of heritage with respect to Sevilla. So that I always had that feeling inside me that it would be nice to also see Sevilla win, although United have had so many tough moments against Sevilla and we don't particularly like them either. So from that point of view, I definitely took some amount of pleasure in watching Mourinho being the sore loser that he can be. But yeah, even I didn't anticipate this kind of a reaction to that. Uh, but I mean, yeah, I like the only time that I have gone to Old Trafford is when Mourinho was a manager, and the atmosphere at Old Trafford during those times, when Mourinho was in trouble and everyone was blaming the Glazers for it, was a brilliant atmosphere to be part of. So I will always have good memories of that game. But having said that, yeah, I mean, my main memory, if you ask me, is always that the excuses that he made up against Sevilla when United lost.
I think the best outcome of this is Jose Mourinho comes back to the skybox, because I used to love it when he was the pundit, and he used to like really school all these amateur pundits like Jamie Redknapp and the likes. I mean, if he can come back to Sky, I'm
Imagine Jose sitting with Micah Richards.
Yeah, I'm not yuck, but I'm not sure. Like, I think he's. See, I was completely sold that Jose is done. That football has moved on from Jose Mourinho in a serious manner. That his style of football is no longer something that clubs want to invest in. But at the end of the day, two consecutive seasons, two consecutive European finals, I think he's not tier one for sure. I don't think he's. I'm reading PSG, which I'm really shocked about, but I don't think he's anywhere near PSG level. But yeah, a club like Roma, like a underdog in their league, maybe like unpredictable cup run. I think he can still be that guy. He's shown that at Roma. For the large part, I think he had a very strong connection with the fans as well at Roma. I think he still does. I mean, the fans are pretty. I think they would be very sad to see him go. So that way, I think he always gets that fan connection going at some of these clubs. He can't do it at the very top level with all the scrutiny, and some of his tactics are just not acceptable for us as fans, for teams and their expectations as well. So, but yeah, I think now from thinking he was washed up and maybe should go to the studio, I think he has a role to play in world football. I think he can find another club. I would love to see him in the studio, like Ashwin said. I think there's still that one segment where he talks about defending and really school, like the Ashwin used the right word. He schooled the pundits on like Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher making their one-dimensional random statements for the sake of saying things, and he just actually breaks it down into footballing principles. That's one of my favorite videos to watch on YouTube. So yeah, it'll be great to see him, but I don't want to see him next to that buffoon Micah Richards who'll be cracking jokes and doing some nonsense.
Yeah, I think what also tends to happen is just before we move on from Jose is that in all this shithouseryness of his this phase of his which has gone on for way too long, honestly, we tend to forget how he was when he was in his early days when he didn't have all this expectation on him, his Porto teams and his first Chelsea side. He's always had the shithousery in him, and he's often deployed that even at those times. But the way his teams used to perform then was very different. I think he's quite a complicated character in the sense that he wants to, I mean, he needs to be loved, only then he will perform, etc., etc. So he's a bit complicated in those terms. But yeah, let's see. I'll honestly be surprised as well, Radha, if he ends up at PSG. But that's the only name I've heard so far. So let's get ready for Mbappe and Mourinho as one amalgamated body in the next season. I don't know. Anyway, let's move on from that thought. Okay, so I did mention that Luton are up. Luton have been promoted along with Sheffield United and Burnley. They will be in the Premier League next season, as will be Radha's beloved Everton, who just survived on the last day. Leicester and Leeds going down. I think honestly that next season there is quite a big number of teams in the Premier League who are not very good. So there'll be a big bunch of teams who would probably be trying to avoid getting relegated or avoid getting in that scrap for relegation. While on the other hand, the championship will end up with tons of big teams. So, for example, next season the championship has obviously Leeds, Leicester, Southampton, Norwich, West Brom, Stoke, Sunderland, Watford, Swansea, Cardiff, QPR, loads of Middlesbrough. So loads of teams who have the potential. They have decent amount of money. So getting out of the championship next season will be a tough ask. While I think the big boys of the Premier League will feast on all of these teams with the likes of Bournemouth again, Burnley. I don't know how they
Here
will end up.
goes here goes swag, nice and early, really going and messing up that relegation race for next year.
They survived. They
Don't say
survived.
anything. Just don't say anything about anyone. Just stop. There's no prediction that can be made about this Premier League relegation race. Now that you've said that, oh, there are so many weak teams, some random strong teams are going to get relegated. I
Yeah,
don't know why you do this, swag.
Chelsea maybe again part of that group. Anyway, right. Let's
I
move
think
on to
I think it will be good to know what our predictions were at the start of the season. Kind of ended.
yeah the
But you
next
know,
episode.
Swag, if you look at the table, of course, Chelsea are not going to be at West next season. Below Chelsea, you have Wolves and West Ham, and you even have Forest. Yeah, Forest might still be there, but I mean, you have good teams still 14 in the table. So I don't think it's as gloomy as what you are saying.
Yeah, let's see. I think as it is, my predictions are cursed, so we'll wait for the review of the predictions in the next episode. But moving on, we were chatting about which goalkeepers can potentially replace De Gea. But any other thoughts on any other potential transfers? I hear you United are bidding 200 million for Mason Mount. Just
I just want to make one statement firsthand that I wasn't jinxing when I talked of McAllister to Liverpool. That's happening now.
What a signing already. These sneaky bastards, they get, they always get them, man. It's amazing how, like, McAllister, uh, the, having had the season he has had, wasn't linked to more clubs. I would have thought, the likes of United, Arsenal would have at least gone in for him, but it seems like he's going to Liverpool for 45 million, which I feel is a complete.
You know,
I
just
think
just
we
one thing on this, that like the first time I really thought that McAllister is out of United's hands and probably going to Liverpool is during the Brighton away game. Like that guy was particularly, angry and aggressive towards Bruno. I don't like, and that moment I thought, okay, if the transfer to United happens, there's going to be some problem. There's something odd here. I don't know.
Well,
Maybe he had decided to transfer by the.
well, to be fair, even Casemiro is really annoyed and angry with Bruno lately. So,
No, so I think the last time we spoke about I'm saying Bruno, I meant Alexis. The last time we spoke about him on this pod, we did discuss how he would be a great replacement for Gundogan, right? We talked about how Pep could have been looking at somebody like that, leave alone some of the other clubs who are anyway looking for midfielders. We talked about Liverpool and how he would, and I also said that if we sign Alexis, then I think Mount is out of the picture because I don't think it's going to be difficult. I think it'll be difficult to have two players who are so suited to playing that number 8 position. So Mount was somebody we were linked with for a long time. I thought he was going to be a free signing. Then I heard the 70 million number, and I'm like, okay, interesting. But I don't know what's going to happen with the whole Mount thing. I think it'll come far below the 70 million that's been quoted right now. Even McAllister seems to be 45 odd million, which is a very competitive price, I think, for midfielders these days. So I think Mount will be somewhere in that range. Maybe because of the English tax, he might be slightly higher. But yeah. So for from a Liverpool perspective, we all knew a midfielder was coming. I think now it's not done yet. I think we need at least one more midfielder. I would prefer somebody who can play the number 6, because as our listeners and our podcasters have been tired of hearing me say, the biggest worry for me all season has been Fabinho. And while he was able to pull it back to a certain extent towards the end of the season, I think one thing that's very clear is we can't go into a season depending on only Fabinho to be the number 6. I think we need to get a imposing number 6 immediately after McAllister. And if those were the only two signings that we did in the summer, I would still start the season happy. McAllister and a number 6, I would still start the season happy. But realistically, we would need McAllister, number 6, and a centre back. And if we had the time, a right back, so that Alexander Arnold had some decent competition for places. So those would be my four players if I had to sign for Liverpool. Those would be one. I'm just so glad that we have signed our first, not yet signed, but hopefully we'll sign our first midfielder since Thiago. And I don't know, maybe Thiago was the only midfielder that we've signed since Fabinho all those years ago. So yeah, it's a good sign at least that they started signing some midfielders.
With respect to Mount, I'm just a bit, skeptical, not because of how good or bad a player is. I think he's a pretty good player, but what United require in that role. So whatever I have seen of Mount, and of course Swag, you can also comment on that. But he seems to be a player who thrives in the top half of the pitch, who kind of his best pressing, defensive as well as offensive actions take place in that half of the pitch, higher up the pitch. So like uh, uh, whereas and you can see what some United fans also talk about Mount, that that's how Ten Hag wants to play. He wants to play in a bit more of a Klopp way, where he wants to bring a much higher line, press higher up the pitch, forced turnovers, and he wants turnovers to be the playmaker. That is one thought behind why United would go for Mount. But having watched United this season, and especially how they have struggled against really good teams away from home, one of the big problems for United has been the press resistance and building out from the back against teams who are very aggressive in the press, especially at their own home ground. So, considering that, I was always of the impression that a United number 8 should be someone who's really comfortable building from the back and taking some of the playmaking pressure out of Casemiro. I'm not sure how Mount is going to do that. That's my main concern about that role.
So I I think if you're looking at his on the ball contributions, particularly when creating, as we were talking before the pod, is that okay? Sometimes he'll be there, sometimes it's a bit hit and miss for him in terms of creation, but in terms of ball winning and stuff like that, so he can do the Ericsson role better than Ericsson, obviously. So I think if that's the intent of Ten Hag, that he replaces Ericsson in the starting lineup and becomes that sort of a player, then that is fine for him. He is also a very teacher's pet sort of guy. So whatever my manager tells me to do, I'll do that. I'll put in all my effort. Uh, in terms of creating from the back, he will be okay to drop down, drop back, pick up the ball, etc., etc. I feel he's better at the off the ball stuff as compared to on the ball. So when you're creating, running into channels, creating space, that sort of stuff, he's probably better at. So if you're looking at him to partner Casemiro, obviously he's not going to be that good, but I think he's being looked at in more of a utility sense, that okay, sometimes he can play as 8, sometimes he can uh, help out in a more attacking role. He's even played left wing, so just flitter around. But yeah, I mean, I would be happy for him to stay on, but I don't think that's happening. And in terms of
That is exactly the concern that I have. I think United needs someone who kind of dictates the play, controls the game, and in the same profile, I feel that Liverpool have actually got a player who has demonstrated that in his career, although his current role may not be that the same role. Whatever you described, that he sometimes is also kind of happy to be on the periphery of the game, play a supporting role, no, and better off the ball than on the ball. We have had experimented with those players in those positions. Even Van de Beek was brought in for that purpose. How what he would bring in off the ball, although higher up the pitch, but and like those are exactly my concerns as well.
Yeah, yeah. I think to be honest, when we first heard the rumors about Mason Mount, I felt that, oh, is he the person who would help us fill that void? I probably agree with RK on that. Although I know United fans are divided on that front. The one thing about Ten Hag that you need to know is that he he knows exactly the kind of players that he wants. Um, like he could almost be accused of oversight sometimes, as is evidenced by the transfer of Anthony as well. He really wanted him, even though we already had Sancho, we already had Rashford, in the wings, but he still ended up going for Anthony. And of course, Anthony provides a different dimension to what we have with those two other wingers that I'm talking about. So I was, to be honest, I felt that we should have gone for McAllister, but clearly Ten Hag thinks is thinking differently. I know Mount has also played in the Dutch Eredivisie before, so maybe that's where he's getting all these opinions about him for. But just talking about other transfers as well, because Messi is obviously leaving PSG, so there's talks of him moving back to Barcelona, which kind of reminds me of what United did with Cristiano Ronaldo as well. Although I'm pretty sure Messi would not leave Barcelona like a toddler. But that is something that is definitely gathering some legs. And of course, how
from
can we
from what I
forget Jude?
hear, from what I hear,
Yeah,
it's a toddler who's forcing him to make that decision. Apparently, his kid wants to go back to Barcelona.
who wouldn't want to leave us and go to
And
Barcelona?
and honestly, when he did leave, I think there was a little bit of a feeling that hey, they can't afford him this year, but when they move around their pieces, and I don't know, I've forgotten the oh my god, what was that
Levers,
buzzword?
levers, levers.
Levers. When they pull those levers, and maybe they'll be able to make it work. I don't know how they're pulling those levers. They won the league, so I guess that helps. But can you really afford a Messi again after all the trouble that they've had over the past 12, 18 months? I would be pretty shocked if that works out. Of course, there was a mandatory rumor that Firmino was also linked to Barcelona, because I think anybody who is not employed at a club gets linked with Barcelona mandatorily at any stage of the season. So I saw that rumor as well. But yeah, Messi to Barcelona, I guess the way to do it is win a World Cup and come back. I mean, it can't get much better than that, I guess. So Ronaldo, I think, was out for a long time. It's only been 2 years for Messi, so not like I think he'll still be. It will feel like it was always part of the plan, and we were only able to achieve it now.
Yeah. Yeah, and that might not be the biggest signing in Europe, right? Because we know Jude Bellingham is also going to Madrid, and man, like what a signing that would be for Madrid! Like absolutely phenomenal player for Dortmund over the past 2, 3 years at least. I was really afraid that he would go to Liverpool and Klopp will make him like a bigger beast than what he is already. But having said that, I'm also worried that Madrid will win like five more Champions League with him. So
And
yeah.
they've already created so much space. They've let go of Hazard. They've let go of Benzema. Okay, rather Benzema has let go of them because he wants to go to the Saudi league. Apparently, he's getting 200 million, 400 million, something like that. But
I
Mariano
you know
Asensio,
But I
Yes,
really
yeah,
think
yeah.
someone should try for Valverde here because they already have Chouameni, they already have Camavinga, now they have Bellingham.
There's
I don't know
no
how they are going to
way.
fit in four world-class players in that midfield.
There is no chance. If anybody was untouchable at Real, I think it's Valverde.
Yeah, I think
What
rather
they've shown last season.
you mentioned something from Ancelotti, right? Where he wanted this season where Valverde becomes a goal scorer and
Yeah, in fact, like way back when, earlier, like when we were not really looking like realistic options for Bellingham, and Real was the only name. I think this was last summer, and I was just praying that okay, Real Madrid get Bellingham now, and Liverpool take Valverde if you can. But it looks like of the four, Kamavinga seems to be the one who's a little bit on shaky ground. At least in midfield, he doesn't seem to have nailed that spot down too much. And they've been playing one of them in at left back as well more recently. So I think if there's one person who's definitely safe in that midfield, it's Valverde. They also played him at the right wing when Rodrigo was coming back to fitness. So I think they're finding a place for Valverde no matter what. So perhaps prior to this season, and maybe there was a chance, but this season he seems to have become the favorite at Madrid. So while he would be a great signing, an absolute amazing signing for any club, I don't think he's going anywhere. It feels like cheating that Real would get Bellingham as well, though. I mean, that's just not fair. Um, but I mean, at the end of the day, Real Madrid, one of the most successful clubs of the last 10 years. I guess it's only fitting that they start acting like it as well.
yeah. And another note, one player who won't be having any more transfers is Zlatan, who has finally hung up his boots. And funnily enough, in the last game when he was given a chance to speak, and this was at Verona's ground, and they were booing him, and he was like, "Shut up! This is the biggest thing that's happened to you all year. You're getting to listen to me," and still
And this
staying
is
true to
when
his
this was
character.
when they were this is when they were relegated as well, right? So it
No,
was
they
just
are
it was
in
just
the playoff, in the relegation playoff. It's Verona versus Spezia. So yeah, the
I'm pretty sure that as a god of Zlatan has cursed them already. So
yeah. So in terms of curses, Ashwin, I'm going to hand over to you. But Marco Reus seems to be a particularly cursed individual, whether it comes to his club career or international career.
um,
And we thought, okay, this time around, 2 points ahead, just need to win at home. Even the Bundesliga trophy is there. They sent a replica to Cologne for Bayern's game, and still, defending champions are still the defending champions.
yeah, so I think you referenced it back in one of the previous pods around Dortmund doing a lot of Spursy things, and probably Marco Reus is the Harry Kane that is right of Dortmund. Uh, I had a really bad feeling, even though they just needed to better, Bayern's result or even match it. If I uh, they couldn't do it because I don't know what went into them. Maybe it was the pressure. The start was absolutely horrendous. Haller missing the penalty. It was just showing nerves as well. Uh, and even when Bayern were literally giving them chance after chance to win to the to win the league, Dortmund couldn't capitalize. Right, so it was probably written in the stars that Dortmund will probably not win it. Um, I think I mentioned it in one of the previous pods. I was very surprised that Dortmund pushed Bayern to this extent. Probably the reason for that is that Bayern did not have a good season, right? This wasn't the most exciting Bundesliga, and I know I will probably get jabs from RK and calling it a farmers league or like whatever, but like Bayern weren't the Bayern of the last many editions, and they were obviously very lucky to win. Um, but yeah, it is what it is. Again, I'll go back to saying the 2018-19 Dortmund team that Lucien Favre led had a better chance of winning the Bundesliga than this one. This team lost Haaland, they lost Bellingham at different points in time. He didn't start for this particular game as well. Royce wasn't playing. Mukoko was benched as well. He had some good games, but obviously he wasn't Haaland, right? So, um, yeah, I mean, it was just a team I wasn't expecting to win, but to bottle it like that is I mean, it will take some time to recover from that, I would say.
What a bottle in front of the yellow wall, going 2-0 behind that early, and that to such soft goals to concede. It was. It looked as if they were really tensed. It was almost like they didn't want to be 2 points ahead, like when the way that they started the game, and then to actually play decently with the backs against the wall and get so many clear-cut chances. I don't know what like Holler was doing that day. He missed so many gilted chances. Royce missed chances. I don't know who was there in that team who had a calm head to take one chance, like one more chance. It was just really bad to watch because I don't think anybody except Bayern Munich fans, want Munich to win.
Yeah, and I think Bellingham, and Ashwin can probably correct me if I'm wrong, but Bellingham has had quite a sort of a quasi leadership role at Dortmund. He's young, but he sort of takes up the leadership role, and him not starting, I think that had an impact. And Bayern scoring in like the sixth or the eighth minute, that made their task very real. And then they thought, oh shit, now we have to do something, and then they just panicked. I think if Bellingham had started, he might have potentially calmed them down, which is quite a big
Yeah,
ask of a 19-year-old. But yeah, he seems to be demonstrating those qualities. So yeah,
yeah. So that's what I said. Like, the 2018-19 teams that probably had more characters who can calm things down, like Axel Witsel and look, I mean, but still, like, I mean, even this team had like Mats Hummels, like it had Emre Can, and like those are the kind of people you look up to, and these are the kind of people who shout at the team, and they are like, calm the fuck down, we can't, we shouldn't be showing our nerves, and it was just disappointed the way that they lost this one. Um, of course, Bayern beat them as well earlier in the season. I think it was just three or four games before. That gave the initiative in some way to Bayern. But still, like losing to Mainz at home is like losing the title to Mainz at home is just it's just
But what a goal, to win the title from Jamal Musiala. That was a special
yeah.
goal. We talked about him a lot during the World Cup, and we were so excited by him, and we don't get to watch him that much. But great goal to win a World Cup. Sorry,
Ano-
win the league.
another of the Chelsea academy lads who's gone on to have a good career elsewhere. Anyway, that list is
Yeah, and he
extremely
came
long.
off the bench as well, right? Because at
Yeah,
the start of the game, everyone was like, "Oh, why isn't Musiala playing?" Then he
yeah,
comes in and he scores that goal.
yeah.
Uh,
Finally, to wrap up, I think the Premier League is over, and now we finally have clarity on who's going to be playing in Europe next season. So, Man United, Newcastle joining Arsenal and Man City in the Champions League next season. Liverpool and Brighton in the Europa League, and Aston Villa in the Conference League. And we don't know. I mean, if West Ham win tomorrow, they will end up in the conference in the Europa League as well next
yeah.
season. That'll be interesting. But no Europe for Chelsea, no Europe for Spurs. Hopefully, a chance for both of these teams to utilize the extra time that they'll have in the on the training ground, particularly with new managers for both of them. But yeah, the next season is shaping up to be a good one, an interesting one. You've still got one more episode to go for this season because you've still got the big one. I don't need to ask for your talkie game to watch out for because there's just one big one left. Simone Inzaghi and his Inter team stand in the way of a Manchester City treble. I'm not holding out much hope for non-City supporters, but the only thing that I've seen is that in the last 2 or 3 weeks, Haaland hasn't been prime Haaland, but he just needs a couple of chances and he'll be there. So scary times ahead, and we'll cover that in the next episode.
All that he needed was for you to jinx him, Shway. Just like Homer.
Yeah,
I don't know, guys. I find your lack of faith disturbing in Lukaku, man. Like, come on. Like, have we've been down this road before. Let's go back to that Belgium game. That I feel really sad for him, but that Belgium game when they got eliminated, I think there's some karmic reversal that is yet to happen. I'm just kidding. City are going to win the season.
Imagine what Julian Alvarez would end up doing. World Cup, Premier League,
Yeah.
FA Cup, Champions League. Only Southampton preventing this like clean sweep of anything he sees, he conquers. And I don't know, he doesn't even play full 90 minutes. He plays like 20 minutes and he's winning
So,
everything.
so
Lukaku,
here's to hoping that Eden Dzeko comes off the bench and like scores or scores a winner against his former team. That would be fun.
if
Yeah.
Lukaku wins this match for Inter, I'll forgive him all his sins.
Yeah, I think he would really cement his place as one of United's best signings ever if he wins this match.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on that note, listeners and viewers, considering it's already way past everyone's bedtime in India, I think we'll sign off for today and keep an eye out for the last part of the season where we are going to look back on our predictions at the start of the season and point and laugh at each one of us. And we'll do some more traditional stuff like talking moment of the season, player of the season, team of the season. There might be a few surprises coming up on that one. So keep an eye out for that. And for the time being, bye bye. See you.